Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 461 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter, here at the Unpopular Podcast. And I don't really ask you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. I hope everybody is having a fantastic Wednesday. In fact, I hope everyone's having a better Wednesday than Robert Saleh and the Jets organization. And I don't mean that in no disrespectful way. What I like to do on this podcast is I'd like to talk about what we know. I like to talk about things that are tangible, things that we can see, we can touch, we can hold. Because unless I'm doing a special or unless we're living in hyperbole, it's no use, especially in the sports realm, to talk about things that we don't know. So where I'm going to start this episode with is talk about things that we know. All season, actually, since last season, what was said about the New York Jets? When you bring somebody like Aaron Rodgers in, there's expectations. And especially when you're an organization that hasn't had the highest of expectations, when you bring somebody in the caliber of Aaron Rodgers, your expectations, whether warranted or unwarranted, raises exponentially. And I said this last year, and I also said this when I did my AFC East preview. I said this after game one, and I'm saying this now. Whether realistic or unrealistic expectation, the Jets, in their mind, think that they're a Super Bowl caliber team. And rightfully so. When you look at the roster, when you look at some of the names that they have, I wouldn't be upset if people thought, or people still think, they're a Super Bowl caliber team. With all those expectations, you can't falter. Because if you falter, and we've seen this in almost every sport, blame has to be put somewhere. And with the Jets now being 2-3 and losing to the now 5-0 Vikings in London, there's no question that the Jets have looked bad. Hasn't looked like the team that they may have thought they would be or what they were projected to be. They haven't looked like that majority of this season. And albeit you can say it's early, but you knew that fingers were going to be pointed. And yesterday, Tuesday, it was announced that Robert Saleh, the head coach, now the former head coach, was fired. I'm not here saying that Robert Saleh was the perfect coach. I mean, he had a 20-36 record. So obviously he wasn't, Bill Belichick. He wasn't the great coach that, some people may have wanted to peg him to be. And I even said it going into it. I said, if this season does not end the way that the Jets organization may think it should end, there's going to be some major changes. Silly me, I didn't think those major changes were going to come after week 5. Like I said, I like to speak about what we know. I like to speak about tangible things. So what do we know about this Jets team right now? Statistically, they're not that good. Now, you can say it's because of Robert Saleh. And I'm not going to say that Robert Saleh, like I said, is the shining light in the darkness that is the Jets right now. But you'd be a fool if you think that the issues that the Jets are going through right now lay solely on the feet of Robert Saleh. Shocker alert. Who would have thought that a quarterback that is, I think, 41 years old, coming off of a season-ending Achilles tear a year ago, hasn't looked good through the first 5 games of the season? I will give credit to where credit is due with Aaron Rodgers. It is incredible that Aaron Rodgers has built his name up to be on this level that he, albeit probably shouldn't be, but when you hear the name Aaron Rodgers, there's a level that he's played to that is almost unfathomable to think that he is not there anymore. It's almost unfathomable to think that the Aaron Rodgers that we saw in Green Bay, that we saw won a Super Bowl, that has been pegged one of the greatest throwers of the football in NFL history, it's almost blasphemous to admit that he is not the same Aaron Rodgers, a 41-year-old player, a 41-year-old quarterback that had a major lower leg injury a year ago is not the same player that can elevate you to new heights. Look, I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers can't be the Aaron Rodgers that they need him to be. What I'm saying is through the first 5 weeks, Aaron Rodgers has not been good. He's been okay. He hasn't been good. The issue is okay is not good enough in the NFL. Excuse me. The issue is okay is not good enough when you have Super Bowl aspirations. Like, where is the connection with him and Garrett Wilson? Why has that not blossomed? Why is it that the Jets are one of the worst teams on third down? Why is it that the Jets that have 2 incredible running backs, why are they one of the worst running teams in the league? I'm going to say it. What's shocking to me, actually, is not as shocking to me. But what is sad and what shows you, and what is a clear indication that the Jets are not ready for the expectations that they think they should be on, the expectations that they have for themselves. The Jets, with all the talent that they have on the offensive side, they're one of the worst offensive teams in football with an Aaron Rodgers. Yet and still, you fire Robert Saleh, but you leave Nathaniel Hackett, who is widely considered one of the worst offensive coordinators in football. But the Jets organization comes out and say that they didn't consult with Aaron Rodgers before firing Robert Saleh, which is, they kind of did cuz dirty, bro. They escorted him out of the facility without even allowed to talk to the team and personnel. So you're telling me your weakest unit is the offense. You have damn near an elementary type scheme with a quarterback that is aging and hasn't clicked yet for him. Yet their offensive coordinator is still there in Robert Saleh, the head coach. You know what? Colin Cowherd said it, and I agree wholeheartedly. Again, I'm not saying that Robert Saleh was the best, but one thing I am saying is if we're talking about if we're talking about something intangible, Robert Saleh has proved to be the best capable coach on that coaching staff. Yet, he's the one that's gone. Mind you, when we talk about the Jets, what is the one thing that we say constantly? Their defense is still elite. Robert Saleh is a defensive coach. What also do we say? Their offense sucks. Well, whose job is that? Nathaniel Hackett. I sort of drank the Kool-Aid. When we were talking about the AFC East, I said that I had the Jets winning the division. And what's even crazier about this whole thing is the season isn't over. Now, obviously, it's not over, but the Jets, when they play the Bills on Monday Night Football, they're playing for first place in the division. And you fire a head coach before that? Expectations for me change once new information gets processed. Sometimes I can feel stronger about the expectation. Sometimes I feel weaker about the expectations. Going into this season, I had very high expectations for this Jets team. But not only does this firing change a lot of my expectations, but the way that they've played and essentially who you're putting blame on shows everything, everything you need to know. I don't know if I said this last episode, so if I didn't, I apologize, but I knew going into week 5, this game was the most important game of the season. Not because you're going to London and you're playing against a 5-0 team. A 4-0 team at the time. You didn't know they were going to be that great going into the season. I said that this was the most important most important game because you're going against Sam Darnold, who used to be a Jet. Woody Johnson used to be the ambassador of the UK. Who is the owner, for people that don't know who Woody Johnson is? So I'm not saying that you had to lose. You had to win, but what I'm saying is you can't look bad. And what do you know? The offense looked terrible. Aaron Rodgers threw 3 interceptions. This was the first game. Garrett Wilson had a good game, 13 receptions for 101 yards. But this is yet another time where Breece Hall, the running back, didn't do anything. I think that he had 9 carries, I believe. So you knew the last thing you could do was make the Jets you didn't want to make the Jets organization look bad, and they looked inferior to a Vikings team that nobody thought was going to be as good as they are, and for that, I give all the credit in the world. But to sit here and fire Robert Saleh 5 weeks in, when you are in position to be number 1 in the division, come next Monday, really shows you all that you need to know about this situation. As unfortunate as it is, the truth of the matter is, and I'm not saying it's all on him, but you hitched your current and your future on a aging quarterback that is coming off a major lower body injury. And for some reason, you're shocked that up to this point, it hasn't worked out. I'm shocked because I thought it was going to. I was one of those people that's like, when you hear the name Aaron Rodgers, you don't expect a fall off as precipitous as it's been. Yet and still, a lot of things get put back into perspective. This is why people were saying, why are you not at mandatory camp? That's the same issue that plagued him his last few years in Green Bay. I'm not saying that the Jets season is obviously over. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, I don't think that the Jets have given any new data to prove that the expectations that they may have had on themselves and a lot of fans, including myself, will be realized. This is not a Super Bowl caliber team. I don't even know if this is a AFC East division leading team when I see how the Bills look. And again, I'm not here caping for Robert Saleh to this. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been fired. What I am saying is, if you're going to fire him, there should be a reason why he was fired. A clear-cut reason why he was fired 5 weeks into the season. And if you're putting the mess that is the Jets on Robert Saleh right now, you would be extremely mistaken. Robert Saleh is a lot of things. A good coach may not even be one of them. But he also is not the main reason why the Jets are as inept as they've been. Not just this year, but for a while. And hey, sometimes the dose of reality is tough. You know, sometimes reality comes all the same. Shouts out Thanos. But sometimes people aren't accepting of it. I think, obviously things can change, but I think 5 weeks in, reality has set in for the Jets that they aren't the team that you thought they should be when you have all the names that people have touted. And and somebody had to be blamed for it. Unfortunately, it was Robert Saleh and not Aaron Rodgers' best friend, Nathaniel Hackett, who has proven to be an absolutely horrible, inept offensive. Bro, the last thing I'm going to say before I briefly touch on the Vikings is this offense is one of the worst ranked offenses. And what usually happens is if you're going to fire the head coach, you usually fire the head coach plus whatever the worst unit is, coordinator. So if you're going to fire the head coach and the defense is just god awful, you usually fire the head coach along with the defensive coordinator. This is the first time in a while I've seen the head coach go and nobody else. Last thing I'll say is I think Robert Saleh would probably be a great defensive coordinator. There are some people that are great at head coach and some people that are great coordinators, maybe not the best head coach, and I think Robert Saleh might be one of those people. No offense to him. Sometimes that's just what reality is. He hasn't proven to be a great coach, but he has proven to be an incredible defensive coordinator. So I think that just might be the route. Shouts out to him for what he has accomplished in the league and what he has accomplished as the head coach of the New York Jets. But unfortunately, the blame had to lay somewhere. And Woody Johnson's not going to blame himself for building this this roster that is underachieved. Or the fact of the Jets haven't been good since Mark Sanchez. Hey man, I wish the best for the Jets and Robert Saleh, man. And for the Vikings, this is probably one of the most interesting 5-0s we've seen in recent history. I know I said that about the Steelers when they were 3-0, but hear me out about this Vikings team. There are still question marks about Sam Darnold because even in games, mid-game, he has roller coasters, a roller coaster ride of emotion. What I mean by that is, let's take this Vikings game. or let's take this Vikings-Jets game. There were some drives where he looked incredible. There's some drives where he looked all of the quarterback that is leading a now 5-0 team. Some of his passes were on the money. We saw the pass to Justin Jefferson. Like, there are times mid-game where Sam Darnold looks all of the MVP candidate that he has played himself to be. But then in that same game, there are some times it's like, yo, what are you doing, bruh? That is the Sam Darnold of old. The most consistent thing, and that's the same thing when we talk about the Steelers in a second, but the main and most consistent thing about this Vikings team, and to me, the main reason why they are 5-0 is because Brian Flores has this defense playing like an all-time defense right now. Dan Orlovsky said it. This is not a defense where you can just show up and not be prepared for. You have to be prepared for their speed. You have to be prepared for their physicality. You have to be prepared for their scheme. If not, you have absolutely no shot. Which also is an indictment and a shot to Nathaniel Hackett, because how is it that this Jets team didn't look any type of prepared for this Vikings defense? Because there's still question marks about the Vikings offensively outside of, Aaron Jones has been great. Justin Jefferson is still, in my opinion, one of, if not the best wide receiver in football. If they find themselves competing for an NFC championship, competing for a Super Bowl, mainly it's probably going to be on the backs of their defense. And that is the biggest compliment I can have for them. So shouts out to the Vikings for beating the Jets in London 23-17. Let's move forward to me, the most eventful game in the moment, and that was the Baltimore Ravens beating the Cincinnati Bengals 41-38. I'm going to start with the losing team again. This is, obviously he's not listening, but this is to Chris Canty. This is to everyone that continues to blame Joe Burrow for the inept start to the season that the Cincinnati Bengals are on currently. Currently, for people that don't know, they are 1-4. They are, I'm not going to say they can't, because they still have a very favorable schedule, but it is extremely rare, and it's almost, it would be very hard for this team to make the playoffs at this point. I've said this before. I don't exactly remember the team, but I said this before, and it is very applicable here. Joe Burrow is the perfect example to why we talk about football being the ultimate team sport. The Bengals is the perfect example to this right now. What do we know? What do we know about the Bengals? Joe Burrow has been an elite quarterback this year. Maybe the first game he was bad, but he's been elite. He finished the game throwing 392 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was 30 for 39, meaning he missed 9 passes and threw 39 of them. Now, yes, I'm not absolving him for the interception that he threw, which essentially allowed the Ravens to get the game-tying field goal. But you had Joe Burrow throw for 392 yards, 5 touchdowns. You had Jamar Chase, who was one of, if not the best, running or wide receiver in football, catch for 193 yards and 2 touchdowns. This offense was humming. After the first few drives, it seemed like the Baltimore Ravens defense could not get a stop. And shouts out to Dominique Foxworth. He pointed this out. The one thing that the Ravens have struggled with since pretty much Lamar Jackson has been the quarterback is an elite wide receiver. If we just want to look at the games this year, he struggled with Devontae Adams. He struggled with Rashid Rice. They struggled with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And the reason why they just put a whooping on the Bills is because the Bills do not have a solid number one receiver. But none of that matters when we're talking about the Bengals right now, because if your whole team is not up to snuff and you're playing against an opponent, like I said before, that you're looking eye to eye with, it don't matter what you're doing. There are issues with the Bengals. Joe Burrow is not one of them. The running game is one of them. The coaching decisions are one of them. I understand to an extent what Shannon Sharp says when he's like, you have one of the highest paid quarterbacks ever. Why is it that the last plays of the game or the last plays of regulation, you run the ball instead of allowing him to make plays throwing the ball when he has torched the Ravens secondary all game? So coaching. And this is yet another week where the Cincinnati Bengals defense, I'm not even going to say let them down, didn't show up. Forget Super Bowl caliber team at this point. If the Bengals keep this up, they may finish second to last in their division. Joe Burrow has played like a top 5 quarterback majority of this season, and it doesn't matter. They're 1-4 because they don't have a running game. Shocker. You let Joe Mixon go, but you didn't really address or replace him at the running back position. And you're seeing the resurgence that the running backs are having this year. And shocker, their defense is not good. And their defense hasn't been good for a minute now. Who would have thought? There's a lot of blame to go around for this Bengals season so far. Joe Burrow is not one of them. Joe Burrow, I'm not going to say he outplayed Lamar Jackson, but they both were looking at each other eye to eye at the end of this game. And again, when you're playing a game that tight, they lost in overtime. When you're playing a game that tight, small things become big. Obviously, the interception was huge. The missed kick, or because the holder fumbled the ball, that's huge. And this is just yet another. It doesn't matter how good, if your team is not up to snuff, which it hasn't been for 5 weeks now for the Bengals, a team that a lot of people had not only winning the AFC North, but at least making it to the AFC Championship. This team is now in danger of not even making it to the playoffs. With a healthy Joe Burrow, with a healthy Jamar Chase, with now a healthy T. Higgins. But one thing that I will say before I move on to the Ravens is again, football is the ultimate team sport. If one unit is not doing well or well below subpar, you're cooked. And for the Baltimore Ravens, I will say it in all intents and purposes, they should have lost this game. Now, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Like I said, we're talking about intangibles this episode, or we're talking about the tangible things that we can see, we can touch, we can prove, and obviously they won. But this was the typical AFC North game, but not the typical AFC North game. When you're playing when AFC North opponents play each other, it's usually hard nosed. It's usually a slugfest. They beat each other up, and it's usually low scoring. Like if you look at some of those past Ravens Steelers games, and they'll end like 9-3, or they'll end 6-3. You understand? That's just when the defenses are as good as they usually are in the AFC North. They usually battle each other out. It's usually a back and forth, usually defensively, but it's usually a back and forth bout. This is probably one of the first times where it was just back and forth offensively. One thing that I loved about this game is coming out of this game, a lot of the question marks and a lot of the talking points that Lamar Jackson skeptics, I'm not going to call them haters, skeptics usually fill their bag with, the ammunition that they usually fill their gun with, they couldn't use this game. Lamar Jackson is not a good passer of the ball. Well, Lamar Jackson threw, I think, 4 touchdowns. And he threw for like 389 yards. Lamar Jackson, he's gonna blow it in big moments. Well, yes, he did have the fumble, the bad snap, but they were able to overcome it. And they were down 10 3 separate times in the fourth quarter, and they came back and won. Lamar Jackson, he's not good against, the top tier opponents. Well, he's like 9-1, I believe, against the Bengals. What I'm saying is this. The same things that are applicable to a certain extent with the Bengals, you can say about the Ravens. The Ravens should be a Super Bowl caliber team, and I am going to say that they're a Super Bowl caliber team. What I will, however, what's going to give me pause, and what's giving me pause is that secondary. If that secondary doesn't come to play, like I said, they struggle with a top tier receiver. Now, let's say they meet, let's say they meet the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship. While they don't have really a number one wide receiver right now. We don't know what Xavier Worthy's going to look like, and obviously they still have Travis Kelce. What if they go against the Bills? Well, you have a good shot right there because they don't. But we don't know what Keon Coleman would look like. There is a lot to love about this Baltimore team. I didn't even really talk about Derrick Henry. 15 catches for 92 yards. 51 of those, I believe, was on the last run of the game in overtime. I could talk about Lamar Jackson's connection with Zay Flowers is stronger than ever, or how Mark Andrews had a big game, or how Isaiah Likely and the incredible pass to catch that Lamar Jackson did while he was on the run. In fact, I think this is the picture for people that are listening on DSPs. I have the picture of it in the back, so unfortunately you can't see it. There is a lot to love about this Baltimore Ravens team. But this is not a flawless team. This is not a perfect team. They are playing their best football right now, but this is not a flawless team. If if there is one unit, if there is one reason why you would point to the Baltimore Ravens and still have question marks about their validity of being a Super Bowl caliber team, it will be that secondary. Marlon Humphreys is not the Marlon Humphreys of old. Kyle Hamilton is one player. But outside of that, to me, this is the toughest offense to have to scheme because Lamar Jackson is such a threat both with his legs and his arm. And then you have Derrick Henry, which they could not find their identity the first two games. They have found it in bunches now. And as you're seeing, when they get rolling, it's tough. Both of these teams, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens, were damn near dead even. It was just a few mistakes, a few coaching mistakes that really cost the Bengals. Because 2-4 looks, or 2-3 looks much different than 1-4. So, shouts out to the Baltimore Ravens for beating the Cincinnati Bengals in overtime, 41-38. Let's talk about the game, the longest game in NFL history, or one of the longest games in NFL history, I believe. Or no. The stat is Sunday was the longest day in NFL history because the Cowboys and Steelers had a long rain delay. So they didn't start playing until like 10:45 or something like that. And the game ended well past like 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, by the way. But the Cowboys beat the Steelers 20-17 on Sunday Night Football. And I can honestly say I feel much worse about both teams than I did before Sunday Night Football. Now, you can call me a hater. You can say, oh, he's only hating on the Cowboys because he's a Washington fan. Okay. No. I'm talking about what I see. And I'll ask you guys, since I usually am pegged the hater, I'm usually the one, because I'm the most vocal. Obviously, I have a podcast. I choose to be the most vocal. And this is technically the Unpopular podcast, so some of my takes may not be as popular as you would think. But let me ask you guys. Does this Cowboys team look like a Super Bowl caliber team so far? I'll give it to you better. Does this Cowboys team look like a top tier team so far? You look at how they win. And you look at how they beat the Steelers. I wholeheartedly believe that the Steelers lost this game much more than the Cowboys won this game. Whether you talk about the interceptions that Dak threw. While, yes, Dak did have 352 yards. CeeDee Lamb had a couple good catches. Tolbert, he had a touchdown. But what the issues that we have talked about with this Cowboys are still there. That's the thing, bro. What I'm hoping for is to be proven wrong. I don't like coming in here, even with the Cowboys. While, yes, I do get some enjoyment because I'm a Washington fan, I don't get enjoyment watching or predicting. I'm not Tony Romo with this. I don't enjoy predicting the next play. I don't enjoy predicting what we would see from a team and it ultimately be right all the time. I'm not saying that I'm always right. What I'm saying is, what was the prediction about this Cowboys team? They would be good, but they would have some major flaws. Well, what do you know? This team is now 3-0. They're 3-0 on the road. They're 3-2. They are a really good team that has some major problems. And those problems don't look like they can be solved overnight. What were the problems that we talked about with this Cowboys team going into the season? Oh, man, who the hell is Dak Prescott going to throw to outside of CeeDee Lamb? Oh, man, how is this running game going to fare? Because you have two aged running backs in the backfield. Oh, man. You lost a lot on the offensive line. How is that going to fare? Oh, man. You lost a lot on the defense, especially the secondary. How is that going to fare? Yo, you cannot have watched this Cowboys team outside of when they played was it the Panthers? They played like a terrible team and destroyed them. You can't look at this team and think that it's a Super Bowl caliber team right now. They got smacked by the Ravens. Like, and in all intents and purposes, while yes, they won, and shouts out for the Cowboys for winning, but I think it was more. I think there's more red flags about the Steelers now than it was going into the game. And honestly, there's more red flags now about the Cowboys. I'm on the side of Darren Orlowski, bro. Like, I'm not saying that it was a bad win. What I'm saying is it wasn't any questions, any concerns, any issues that I had with this Dallas Cowboys team were not rectified because of this win. In fact, they were intensified because of this win, because this was a slog fest. This win didn't feel good. This wasn't one of those, oh man, they put foot to no. This was, damn, I mean, I don't know who's going to win this game. Oh, well, the Cowboys won. Shouts out to them. Yo, the Steelers did everything in their power to lose this game. And they essentially did. Shouts out to the Cowboys for beating the Steelers. I'm not going to take away from the win. I'm just saying, if you would be lying to yourself if you had major questions about this Cowboys team and you think after Sunday Night Football those questions were alleviated. I think you'd be lying to yourself. Dak Prescott was good to a certain extent, but he had two egregious, shouts out Stephen A., egregious interceptions that should have been detrimental. Egregious. Like, it's not one of those video game interceptions where like the ball pops up and it's like, oh, well, somebody came down. No, it was, what in God's name were you looking at? Why did you think that was the play? But hey, they essentially won, so, shouts out to them. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm not going to say that Justin Fields is the issue. I'm not going to say that the biggest issue with this team is Justin Fields. I'm not going to say that because it's not true. But what we have proven is Justin Fields is not good enough to overcome the lack of weapons that this team has. Let me talk about George Pickens for a second. As a person that doesn't always watch Steelers games, I was not familiar with George Pickens' game to an extent of, I know how good George Pickens can be. Yet I was always confused as to why people would say the Steelers are in desperate need of a number one receiver. Because I'm thinking to myself, George Pickens has all the skills to be a number one receiver. Why are we not considering him a number one receiver? Oh, boy. Then I've watched this season. And George Pickens suffers from the J.R. Smith syndrome. I talked about this before. For anyone that plays 2K, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That is the microwave. When George Pickens is hot, when George Pickens is locked in, he is a top tier. He has all the skill sets to not only be a number one receiver, but to be a top tier league receiver. George Pickens, he has the talent to be one of them. I'll say this. I'm not going to say he's better. I will never disrespect them for this, but George Pickens has the talent to be in that elite wide receiver room. The talent. Like the talent isn't when he is firing, like when he is engaged and he's playing to his utmost, he has the talent to be in that Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson class. He has the talent. But the thing about a microwave is when it's hot, it's hot. But when you're done, when you take the food out, it's just sitting there doing nothing. It's not collecting energy. It's not growing. It's not reclean. It's just sitting there. It's doing nothing. There have been too many occasions where George Pickens does nothing. Where George Pickens is he's a forgotten player. I was like, oh, shoot, George Pickens in this game. I forgot about that. For the player as talented as him, that should not be the case. His talent is the reason why the Steelers were okay with letting Deontay Johnson go, who, might I add, was their number one receiver. But some people, consistency is another trait, is an important trait to being a number one receiver, which he does not have yet. And he's also immature when you see some of the antics after the game with the Cowboys players, pulling his face mask, like some of the taunting he did, like the man puts open always effing open on his eye black. Yet and still, in fact, let me see what George Pickens did this game. George Pickens had 3 catches for 26 yards. To put that into perspective, Najee Harris had more receiving yards than him. The biggest Justin Fields finished 15 for 27 for 131 yards. That is 4.9, pretty much 5 yards a play, or on average, and he had 2 touchdowns. His QBR was 35.6. The thing that we feared the most about this Steelers team has come to fruition. Their defense is great. But if their defense doesn't come to play, or their defense has a lapse, this offense has not been good enough to carry the load. Which is why I said when they were 3-1, this team outside of the defense has been masquerading as a 3-1 team. I don't think they'll be bad. I think the Steelers are still a good team, and I think Justin Fields should be the starter moving forward. He hasn't done anything, in my opinion, to lose the starting position. But he hasn't done anything to make me think that this team is going to be a threat in the playoffs. The defense has, but he has not. And moreover, the offense as a whole has not. Which, quiet as it's kept, has been a issue for Mike Tomlin since Big Ben left. That's one thing that we know about the Steelers, bro. Which is also kind of shows you why the Steelers have never really been in Super Bowl contention since Big Ben. Because they go with the same uniformal way of approaching a season. And while it works, while it, allows Mike Tomlin to be a coach that never has a losing season, when's the last time you looked at the Steelers and thought that they're a Super Bowl caliber team? Their defense has always been great. From Troy Polamalu to James Harrison to TJ Watt. To Joey Porter Jr. To Minka Parsons. Like, they've always had a great defense. But they've also, outside of Big Ben, they've also had a subpar offense since Big Ben left. And I know I kind of went more broad than ever, but when you look at that Steelers-Cowboys game, that is, I'm not going to say that's the best the Steelers can play, but that's what you're going to get until this is even with Pat Freiermuth. This is even with Najee Harris. Like, if you don't get now I don't know why they hired Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator, but if you don't get some creativity, if you don't get some impact players on this offense, it's going to be another season where they'll probably finish over 500, but there won't be no Super Bowl aspirations. But shouts out to the Cowboys for beating the Steelers 20-17. Oh, boy. Monday Night Football. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the New Orleans Saints 26-13. And this is yet another. You know what it is, man? This is yet another game where Patrick Mahomes didn't look great for the duration of the game, but he did look great in moments that he needed to be. Maybe that's just the formula. Maybe that is just what is going to happen. When you have there gets to a certain point where you have so many injuries that it could derail a season. Now, I don't think that's going to happen with the Chiefs unless one of the big three get hurt. And I've talked about it for people that don't know who the big three is. That is Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones. But you have a running back that you just pretty much got off the couch. You have a wide receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster had to come back. Had 7 receptions for 130 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster. And no offense to him, but Juju. Xavier Worthy caught a touchdown. Shouts out to his moms. Side note, bro. Like, ESPN knows who the hell to put on camera, bro. Dog. Do you know how much time they spent on Xavier Worthy's mom? Don't get me wrong. I know she's young. I know she's attractive, whatever. But come on, dog. Like, ESPN, you kind of getting messy out here. But maybe this is the best that the Chiefs can give. Patrick Mahomes, 28 for 39, 331 yards, 1 interception. I don't think he threw a touchdown. I know Travis Kelce, he played well. He finally had a really good game. Not the greatest, but a good game. Kareem Hunt, 27 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown. Like I said, Xavier Worthy had a touchdown. that was a direct snap to Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce did the backwards pass thing to Samaje Perine. Maybe this is the best that we're going to get from the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, obviously, the best, they're 5-0 at this point. But I don't know what we can expect, not having Isaiah Pacheco, not having Rashid Rice, which turns out he didn't tear his ACL, but he has to repair his LCL, which is damn near the same thing. And this is, as much as it may not sound like it, like this is a testament to how good Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid is. To at this point, outside of a few people to have pretty much a plug and play roster at this point on some key positions and to still look as good. Now, they don't look great, which is why a lot of people, including myself, may have someone like the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Baltimore Ravens have proven, even after week 1 and even though they're 3-2 at this point, I think that they have shown that when they play their best and Kansas City Chiefs play their best, at least so far this year, the Ravens look better. And this isn't me poo-pooing on the Chiefs. They continue to find a way to win. They are one of 2 undefeated teams. Patrick Mahomes still looks like, even though he hasn't had the greatest of seasons, he hasn't had the Patrick Mahomes-esque season, he still had a good season. It just hasn't been great. And there have been a lot of games, not Monday, but there have been a lot of games where he's been outplayed by the other quarterback. But maybe this is just what we expect. Maybe this is just what we have to. Patrick Mahomes is going to make plays when he needs to. The defense is going to make plays and be ferocious. Shouts out to Spags. He's probably one of, if not the best defensive coordinator in football. They have essentially the best defensive player in football right now in Chris Jones. And they're going to win games the way that they win games. I'm not saying that they're going to go undefeated, but they're 5-0. And they haven't looked like the Kansas City Chiefs. They haven't looked incredible, not once. And they're still 5-0. And like I said, maybe this is not having a number 1 receiver or Xavier Worthy still being a rookie, but losing Rashid Rice and not having Isaiah Pacheco. This might be the Chiefs that we know. This might be the Chiefs season. This might be what the Chiefs are. Not saying they can't get got down the road somewhere, but they won. They found a way to win. And shouts out to them for that. And the Saints. Let me not laugh about this because this isn't funny. Derek Carr went out with an oblique injury, and they're saying that he can miss several weeks because he has an oblique injury. I'm not sure if it's a tear. I don't know what it is, but they're saying that he may possibly miss several weeks, multiple weeks because of an oblique injury. I hope that he has a speedy recovery, and I hope that he's good. This is yet another player that is put on the injury list for the Saints. That injury list is starting to pile up for the Saints, both on the defensive side and the offensive side. So for that, I'm not laughing at that. What I am laughing at, though, and which is hilarious to me because, and shouts out to y'all, bro. Shouts out to the people that listen. Shouts out to the fans. Shouts out to my supporters. I appreciate all of you guys. If you're not, please follow the Unpopular Podcast on social media. Follow the YouTube channel. Follow the DSPs. Follow it all. I appreciate you guys. But everyone has said it to me. I was just the naive one and not listening. Everyone was saying, whoa, Jay, whoa. Calm down, bro. The Saints do this every year. They start off great. They start off on fire. Just give it until October. Give it until Halloween. Give it until the halfway point of the season. They'll show you who they are. And I'm like, nah. You can't be. You're not right. Yo, the Saints have lost 3 in a row. On top of that, they have looked. They haven't looked the best. I won't say that. They haven't looked the best. Now, you can attribute that to injury, if you would like. And I'm not going to sit here and say that you're wrong. It is a laundry list of players that is injured. But I feel bamboozled because this is yet another year that, and I'm not saying that the season's over, but I don't know what they'll look like without Derek Carr. And they're already teetering at this point. They're 2-3. So, and if Derek Carr missed multiple weeks, that 2-3, because I think they got to play the Bucks next. That 2-3 can turn into 2-4, 2-5, 2-6 really quick. But this is the Saints, man. And honestly, pre-injury, we saw the real Derek Carr before the injury on Monday Night Football. When he is on, Derek Carr, there's no, in my opinion, when he's on, when he's firing on all cylinders, he is a top 10 quarterback in the league. He has all the talents of being a top 10 quarterback in this league. But he's going, you know what he is? He is in my opinion, he's a better version of Jimmy Garoppolo. He will have some extremely head-scratching plays. Extremely head-scratching interceptions. Like the one that he threw. Bro, it was an incredible catch. Shouts out to the Chiefs defender, but he just threw the ball up like he was like, and then when you see the person, I don't know if he was trying to throw it out, I don't know, but if he was trying to throw it to somebody, the closest receiver had 2 players on him, double coverage, and he threw a moon ball. Like, Derek Carr is such a boom or bust type player. Like, when he's throwing bombs to Rashid Shaheed, when Alvin Kamara is doing this thing, this Saints team looks great. But then on the same time, like, Derek Carr to me, he's so erratic. I don't think that he can, at this point, be the leader of a playoff caliber team. Or let me not say that. Of a Super Bowl caliber team. You can say it's because of the injuries, and I wouldn't be mad if I was proven wrong. But Derek Carr be having some like what the hell plays multiple times in a game. So, and he had that against the Saints before he went out. So, or against the Chiefs before he went out. So, shouts out to the Chiefs for beating the Saints 26-13. Oh boy. Yep, we're here. The Commanders beat the Browns 34-13. Let me talk about my Commanders real quick. I told y'all. Did I not say that Jaden Daniels had a chance, albeit early? But didn't I say Jaden Daniels had a chance to be Offensive Rookie of the Year? Now, no, I didn't think this team was good enough to be 4-1. I didn't think that this team was good enough to compete for a top spot in the NFC East. But like I've said several times in this podcast, I don't mind being wrong. And this was yet another week where Jayden Daniels shined. 238 yards, 1 passing touchdown. He also had 82 yards rushing. Terry McLaurin, 4 receptions for 112 yards. Austin Eckler returned, and he was big in the running game. Brian Robinson had a touchdown. The defense wasn't bad. The defense was actually surprisingly good, but I think that's going to be talked more when I talk about the Browns side of the situation. The Commanders are good, and let me be subjective, and let me take my bias out of it for a second. I think the Commanders have a very good shot. When you look at how uncertain the NFC East is right now, with the Cowboys and their issues, with the Eagles and their issues, with the Giants and their issues, I think the Commanders have a really good shot of winning the NFC East. I also think that when you look at the complexion of the NFC and you look at the quarterbacks that have shined in the NFC, I'm not saying he's the best, but Jayden Daniels has played himself into a position where he's looked at as a top-tier quarterback in the NFC. I think he's having, maybe not to the extreme that C.J. Stroud had, but he's having a C.J. Stroud type season that C.J. Stroud had last year for the Houston Texans. Again, I'm not saying that Jayden Daniels is having C.J. Stroud had a historic year, but so is Jayden Daniels. I am not going to say that the Commanders is a Super Bowl caliber team. I'm not going to say that. I'm not, but I do think that they are a playoff caliber team. And that's something that I did not think was the case going into the season. I knew that Jayden Daniels had a really good shot of winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year. I did not think that he was going to be in a position to be an MVP candidate, and that's what he's been through the first 5 weeks. There are still some major issues with this Commanders team, especially when we talk about the secondary. But what I will say is this team has played above anything that I could have expected as a Commanders fan. And it's still a different feeling. Now, yes, obviously, this high is going to come down. I'm not saying it's going to drop, but it's going to come down. We may lose 2 or 3 in a row. You know, we may or may not make a play. I don't know. But Jayden Daniels, what I will say is he has played incredible, and he has played himself into that top of the NFC quarterback. Because if you think about it, no, I don't think right now he's better than Dak Prescott. Outside of that, you can question, is he on the same level, if not better than maybe a Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy, which we'll talk about shortly. The Commanders are playing well above the expectation that a lot of people had for them. And a lot of that is on the back of Jayden Daniels and the running game. And shouts out, I talked a lot of crap when this happened. So I will admit where I was wrong, and I will admit where I was a little bit off. I did not like the hiring of Dan Quinn at all. I remember what a Dan Quinn's defense looked like in the playoffs with the Cowboys. I remember what a Dan Quinn team looked like when they were in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Obviously we're talking about the Falcons. I wasn't enthused about the hiring of Dan Quinn, especially when you saw the available coaching candidates. I am pleasantly surprised to say that I was wrong, at least up to this point. Dan Quinn has been perfect for the Commanders as a head coach. He has been exceptional. He and his coaching staff have been incredible. And if I was wrong for doubting Dan Quinn, shouts out to them. I want to talk now. We got to talk about the Browns. And I don't want to talk about anybody else or any other unit. I'm just going to talk about Deshaun Watson. In fact, before I talk about Deshaun Watson, let me talk about all the things around Deshaun Watson before I center in on Deshaun Watson. Yes, his offensive line has been terrible. The Cleveland Brown offensive line has been a bottom 5 offensive line in the league so far this year. They have been absolutely horrible, and I believe that Deshaun Watson is the most sacked quarterback so far this year. In fact, I think teams are averaging 5 sacks on the Cleveland Browns a game. Their offensive line has been absolutely putrid. That is a fact. The Cleveland Browns wide receivers lead the league in drops. Whether we talk about Amari Cooper, whether we talk about Jerry Jeudy, they drop the ball more than any other team, any other unit in football. This is yet another week where a wide receiver dropped a pass in a big moment. I think the score was like 20-3 or something like that. And Jerry Jeudy was in the end zone. All he had to do was catch the ball. And it was a perfectly thrown ball. And he dropped it. He let it go right through his hands. So, yes, the offensive line has been trash. The receivers dropped the ball at an alarming rate. And I also think that you have to look at the coaching staff as well. Yes, Kevin Stefanski is a 2-time Coach of the Year, rightfully so. But I think you have to start, and maybe he has, I don't know. You have to start running schemes that's not just beneficial for your quarterback, but beneficial for your team. And you can obviously tell when you come after, immediately after the game and say, we're not benching Deshaun Watson, even though he was benched late in the game. You can tell that there are decisions that are being made above Kevin Stefanski, but I just feel like you have to get more out of your units, and you're not doing that. Especially offensively, seeing as though they are the absolute worst third down team by a long shot. But now let me focus on Deshaun Watson. Because as much as everything that I just said is true, Deshaun Watson has been the major issue, the biggest issue on this team. He has been a bottom 5 quarterback this year. I think people have thrown away the belief that he's ever going to get back to that Houston Texans Deshaun Jackson. We haven't seen that in years. Now, I think people are holding on to the hope that we are going to get a competent-looking quarterback, which we have not seen. The biggest issue with Deshaun Watson is there is nothing that anyone has done to get him to this point. We talk about the confidence of a player. The confidence of a player is such an important thing in any sport. Albeit, some people obviously not as much as the other, and some people are delusional, but there is a self-confidence that almost every single player believes that they're that guy, believes that they are the best player in the world. Every player thinks they are that dude, and rightfully so. They're in whatever respective sport they're in. The issue is, and I'm not even going to say an issue, that is, for a lot of people, that is one of their superpowers, that confidence. It allows them to play through anything. You can play through a bad game. It can fuel a good game. Confidence is just the baseline of something that you need. In Deshaun Watson, it is clear that he is playing without confidence. How can you tell? He misses wide open receivers. He overthrows receiver, and it's not just a simple overthrow. Like if I jump, I might get. He overthrows receivers by like 10 yards constantly. While yes, the offensive line is terrible, he holds the ball for way too long. While yes, the offensive line is bad, he is a main reason for a lot of those sacks because he holds the ball for so long, because he's unsure of himself. He is not confident. There's no pep talk that can help. This is all on Deshaun Watson. I am done thinking that Deshaun Watson can never get back to the Houston Texans days. That's just with a bunch of injuries, bunch of surgery. I don't see it. And I'm starting to lose faith that we are going to see Deshaun Watson get back to a competent quarterback, because he ain't even that right now. The Browns season is essentially done. And it is week after week is starting to look like the Deshaun Watson contract is not only the worst contract in sports right now. He is really pushing the boundary of being the worst contract in sports history. I was watching Nightcap. Shouts out to Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco. And Shannon Sharp said it, and he asked Chad, and I agree with what Chad said. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback have such a steep drop and such... Bro, I didn't realize Deshaun Watson's 29. I am older than Deshaun Watson. And he doesn't even look like, Zach Wilson, Jamarcus Russell, Colt McCoy, Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, all have looked better than Deshaun Watson looks right now. Let's not forget, Deshaun Watson was a top 3 quarterback in the league just a few years ago. And now it seems like the only reason why he is on an NFL roster is because of the most guaranteed money and the steep penalties that the Cleveland Browns would face if they were to cut Deshaun Watson. But I said going into this season, this was a very important season for Deshaun Watson. And up to this point, he has proven that not only is he not the same player, but his confidence is so shot that he doesn't even resemble a competent player. And as unfortunate as it is, there have been no signs that he's going to get back to a competent quarterback. Essentially meaning if the Browns, which it doesn't sound like they will if you listen to Kevin Stefanski, if the Browns don't move on from Deshaun Watson, or at least bench Deshaun Watson for Jameis Winston, the season is essentially over now, even though there's still a glimmer of hope. That hope continues to fade with this Deshaun Watson as the starting quarterback. Confidence is a crazy thing, bro, and Deshaun Watson has none of it. And it shows. Yo, think about that, and I'm gonna move on. Think about how drastically different Jayden Daniels, a rookie, looked compared to Deshaun Watson, who just 3 to 4 years ago was considered a top 3 quarterback in the league. Look how drastically different Jayden looked compared to Deshaun on Sunday. Do you think that is just a talent gap? No, it's a confidence gap. One player is playing with all the confidence in the world. One player doesn't have a shred of confidence. And it shows. Shouts out to the Commanders for beating the Browns 34-13. You know, we talk about football being a team sport. Yo, that also means coaching. I don't think I've ever seen a coach his team out of a win more than I saw on Sunday with the Texans beating the Bills 23-20. The issues that the Texans have had or majority of the season, they still have. The offensive line isn't the greatest. They need a running game, and they don't have one without Joe Mixon. And the defense, if they're not getting to the quarterback, they're having a tough time. Derek Stingley's pretty good, but they're having a tough time. But they need to develop a running game. They need Joe Mixon back desperately. But this game was more about Sean McDermott coaching his team out of a win. Bro, I've never seen a team run 3 straight pass plays in your own end zone and you had a shot to win the game. It was 2020. On top of that, you knew that the opposing team had all their timeouts and you're in the end zone. That means if you punt the ball, more than likely it's not getting past the 50-yard line. And you run 3 or you call 3 consecutive pass plays? On top of that, you knew just a quarter ago, your quarterback and Josh Allen head bounced off the turf like a basketball. Now, they say he didn't need to do the concussion or whatever, but he didn't look the best. Yo, I'm not here calling for Sean McDermott's job. Don't hear me say that. But what I am doing is shining light on the fact of this is yet another situation where Sean McDermott's coaching gets in the way of a bona fide win. Now the Bills have lost, 2 straight? And is in position on Monday night to have to win to be atop of the division against the Jets. Boy. And the Bills, and that's even worse, bro. The Bills don't have a number one receiver. Yeah, the relationship between Keon Coleman and Josh Allen are getting better, but Shakur's out. So who are you throwing the ball to? And that's another thing. All three of those passes outside, two of the three passes were like bombs, like deep bombs. Like, bro, what? I don't think I've been more infuriated about a team that I don't even support lose, because it's just like I've never seen ineptitude on such a stage before. Man, Sean McDermott, and he owned up to it, and but still, bro, boy, that man, I just can't fathom that. And like I said, it's a team sport. Your coach can essentially put you out of a position to win. That's kind of what was it Fred Taylor? That's kind of what Taylor did, the coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. That's kind of what he did, running 3 run plays at the end of the game when Joe Burrow was on fire. You run 3 plays, essentially going nowhere, for a game-winning field goal after Lamar Jackson bobbled, or it was a bad snap, and you run 3 straight run plays instead of passing the ball when Shouts out to the Texans for beating the Bills 23-20. Hey man, this is yet another week where Caleb Williams is getting better, albeit he did play the Panthers, but the Bears beat the Panthers 36-10. Caleb Williams threw for another 300+ yard game. The relationship with DJ Moore is getting better. He has 5 receptions for 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's starting to click. I'm not saying that they're world beaters because they played the Panthers, but Caleb Williams is getting better. It feels like the game is slowing down for him. It feels like he's kind of getting in 20 for 29. DeAndre Swift, him being there has been big. The Bears team looks good. The Bears defense is still pretty good, still very good. It's been the offense that's kind of been slow, but they're 3-2, 3-0 at home. They look really good. Caleb Williams is, again, albeit the Panthers. And while I'm on it, the Panthers, they might be the worst organization in football. I was thinking long and hard about that. I was thinking, all right, is there a franchise, right? Is there a franchise that you can legit say is worse than the Panthers? And I was thinking hard too. I was thinking hard. Now, Commanders would be on that list with Dan Snyder, but no, they're 4-1 right now. The Browns might be up there too, but the Browns have an incredible defense. Their defense is always on the field because their offense is trash. But now I will say historically the Browns have been a worse organization. But right now, I don't think there's a organization in football that is worse than the Panthers. Yo, Andy Dalton played so bad, which, shocker, who would have saw that coming, that they went back to Bryce Young. And what do you know? Another quarterback that is playing with no confidence because Bryce Young didn't look good. He did throw a touchdown. He didn't. He didn't look good. The Panthers did this to themselves. some of the whiffs that they hit on the trade or hit on the draft, some of the trades that they've made, some of the people, the firings that the hirings, they've done this to themselves. And I'm not taking anything away from the Bears. I mean, you do have a rookie quarterback, and they did dismantle the Panthers. But the Panthers are, it's hard for me to see and name currently another organization that is worse than the Carolina Panthers. They're just, it just seeps of ineptitude. You can call me a sycophant all you want. Yo, name me a worse organization. I'll wait. She's bad, bro. Shouts out to the Bears, I'm sorry, for beating the Panthers 36-10. What was that? Hey, the Jaguars got off of the Ofer boat. They beat the Colts 37-34, and Trevor Lawrence didn't have a bad game. He 28 for 34, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bigsby, the running back, had 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yo, the Jaguars defense is horrible. Yo, they had Joe Flacco. Now I'm starting to like rein in my skepticism of Joe Flacco, but because he continues to ball out, even though he does turn the ball over a lot. But the Colts. This is yet another game where Anthony Richardson didn't play because he was hurt. Yeah, man. The Jaguars defense. The Jaguars are as bad as they projected. Like, their defense sucks, bro. And this is even with Josh Allen Haynes. I think Hines is his name. They suck, bro. Their defense is horrible. And this is the one game where, or not one, but this is the game where Trevor Lawrence was able to overcome their defense being bad. On top of that, the Colts defense ain't better because it was just injury. I don't know how many times they stopped the game for an injury, and most of them was on the Colts. The Colts have probably one of, if not the longest injury reports in football, starting with their quarterback and Anthony Richardson, which sucks. But yeah, the Colts are on a very small list. I know the Niners have a lot of injuries. The Browns have a lot of injuries, especially when we talk about their offensive line. The Rams are definitely up there. We'll talk about them in a second. But you were able to overcome a horrible defense, which the Jaguars have. And so shouts out for getting off of the winless boat and beating the Colts 37-34. I'm going to be the one to do it. Because I don't hear a lot of people doing it. And you know what it is? Shouts out to Candace Parker. She was talking about it, but for the WNBA. I think when you hear me say something, I think when players hear analysts that never played the game, or commentators that never play the game, there's always a level of nonchalantness that they view when they hear me say something. It's like you'll hear my praise, but you'll take my criticism as, Well, he's never played. And or they won't respect my praise or respect my criticism, and that's okay. But what I'm trying to say is this. I am aware that the 49ers have a bunch of injuries. Most very key. I mean, Hargrove isn't there. Greenlaw's still not there. Christian McCaffrey's still not there. Like, I understand that they are dealing with a heap of injuries. But this is yet another game where the 49ers blow a double-digit fourth quarter lead. This time, it was at the hands of the Arizona Cardinals, losing 24-23. The numbers aren't eye-popping either. I mean, Brock Purdy had an okay game until the fourth quarter where it looked like he couldn't complete a pass to save his life. Brandon Ayuk had 147 yards, but where was he in the fourth quarter? Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches in football. I'll say that again. Oh, my Dr. Umar. Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches in football. I'll even run it back a third time. Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches in football. In the same breath, he struggles a lot of times with keeping leads. Again, I started this by saying this is this is yet another, means that this has happened on several occasions. This is yet another blown double-digit fourth quarter lead. Mind you, you're playing a young Arizona Cardinals team that defense has been playing better, but hasn't looked really that good at all outside of one game where they played the Rams and the injury-plagued Rams. The Cardinals are still trying to get their connection with, the connection of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray. They're trying to get that still together. But they were essentially punked. The Cardinals punked the 49ers at the 49ers. And shocker, this is yet another week where the defense did not look good at the end. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. When they look incredible, they look incredible. When they don't, ugh. I'm not here saying that Kyle Shanahan should be fired. I'm not here saying that Kyle Shanahan is not a good coach. In fact, for the fourth time now, Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches in football. But it does have to be addressed that he, on multiple occasions now, has blown double-digit fourth quarter leads. And it also has to be addressed that Brock Purdy has not been great in fourth quarters a lot of times. Not saying all the time, but Brock Purdy, a lot of this loss is on Brock Purdy and just the defense in general. But shouts out to the Cardinals, man. They did what they were supposed to do. They went into Levi Stadium and walked out with a win. So shouts out to Arizona for beating the 49ers 24-23. Oh, yeah. I think sometimes you have to realize that, you can't talk to everybody the same way. Some people aren't as for lack of a better term, passive, and I don't mean that in a negative way to an extent, but some people aren't as passive as some people. I'll just say that. The Broncos beat the Raiders 34-18. And I think the biggest talking point of this game was the brief altercation that Sean Payton had with Bo Nix. I understand. I said this before, and I've also said this while talking about Sean Payton. I think the best coaches are the ones that can adapt to their players, are the ones that understand that getting the best out of one player, you talk to them differently than you'll talk to somebody else. Like, you might be able to yell and curse out one player, but there could be another player that doesn't really take to that type of leadership. I understand. So not every player can be coached like, Drew Brees. And there are going to be some times where a player is going to talk back. And you might have been able to yell at Russell Wilson's face. You ain't doing that to Bo Nix, obviously. I'm not saying that their relationship is shattered. I'm not saying that Sean Payton's a bad coach. I'm not saying that Bo Nix was wrong for doing what he did. Again, I don't even know what the audio was. But what I will say is you can't talk to everybody the same way. And the Broncos look surprisingly good, man. Bo Nix was pretty good, 206 for 2 touchdowns. Patrick Surtain and the defense got 2 interceptions. Hell, they benched Gardner Minshew for Aiden O'Connell. So, that's probably going to be a quarterback controversy. I don't know. Shouts out to the Broncos for beating the Raiders 34-18. The Packers beat the Rams 24-19. The Rams, the Packers almost gave this game away. I will say that. Jordan Love looked pretty good at points. He didn't look great the entire game. Matthew Stafford looked okay, but I don't get, and this is maybe Sean McVay. Like, I understand that running isn't the strong suit, even though Kyron Williams had 22 carries for 102 yards. But like, why is Matthew Stafford with a depleted offensive wide receiver room? Why is Matthew Stafford throwing the ball 45 times? Yeah, I don't know about that. But the Packers did win. Like I said, it's been an injury deplete. Jordan Love looked okay. But it's very hard to judge the Rams because everyone's hurt and more people got hurt this game too. So shouts out to the Packers for beating the Rams 24-19. Oh my gosh, bro. I'm starting to lose all faith in the world in the Seahawks, bro. The Seahawks lost to the Giants 29-20. Everything that could go wrong for Seattle went wrong. Bro, they fought back. They possibly were about to win the game until you blocked Bryce Ford blocked the field goal. Or I don't know if he blocked it, but he returned it for a touchdown. Like, DK Metcalf dropping the ball. You had Darius Slayton had 8 receptions for 122 yards. Big drop, Darius. Damn. Yeah, man, this Seahawks team, that's what I was saying in the thing. Like, they have a chance to be really good, but then they also have a chance. Like, this defense was supposed to be much better, and you lose to a Giants team that, in all intents and purposes, and they kept saying this. I don't know if people noticed. They kept saying this in the broadcast. The Giants are one of the worst teams in football. Like, they kept saying it as they were up big. Yeah, bro, I don't know about the Seahawks team, man. Like, it's don't get me wrong. I know it's any given Sunday, and the Giants still have some very capable. But you lost to a Giants team without Malik Neighbors, and that's like their entire offense. Bro, you allowed Trace Jr. 18 carries for 129 yards. You allowed Darius Slayton 122 yards. Yeah, man, I don't know, bro. Geno Smith had intercept, like, boy. Yeah, man, get the Seahawks on my screen, bro. Shouts out to the Giants for beating the Seahawks 29-20. Oh yeah, no, I'm not talking about this game that much. The Dolphins beat the Patriots 15-20. 15-10. Dolphins look terrible without Tua. Not saying Tua is the greatest, but Tua is a better, quarterback than Tyler Huntley. And the Patriots look horrible with Jacoby Brissett. And it was announced that Drake London is going to start against the Texans. Good luck starting him behind that offensive line. That is probably by far the worst offense. The Browns and the Patriots are kind of going back and forth for the worst offensive line in football. Right now, I'd give it to the Patriots. And you about to have a rookie quarterback going up against Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter in the Texans. Yeah. I'm not talking about that much. That game's trash. Shouts out to the Dolphins for beating the Patriots 15-10. That was week 5. Another thing we saw, coming off of the NFL and talking about college football, we saw some upsets, man. We saw some upsets. And when I tell you, now, let me tell you something. You're already going to make noise. Waves are going to happen when something happens for the first time. And usually there's a good side to that and there's a bad side to that. Vanderbilt, in all intents and purposes, has been the doormat for the SEC. I'm still confused as to why that is an SEC team, but I digress. Alabama, as we know, is a powerhouse. The mighty Alabama. They have a rich football history. Vanderbilt has a poor football history. Now, there are things in sports that we knew was going to come to an, or something, it was going to happen at least once. Like, you knew that a 16 seed was going to be the 1 seed at least once in the college, in March Madness. It was going to happen at least once. I think since Virginia, it's happened twice now. But you knew that was just going to happen once. You knew, and we've seen it with, the Giants. There was going to be a team that went into the playoffs as a wild card and won every road game. That's going to happen. It's very rare, but it's going to happen. I think there is going to be somebody that there's going to be a 8th seed in the NBA playoffs to win the championship. There's been an 8th seed to make it, the New York Knicks. I don't know if there's ever been an 8th seed to win it. There's also going to be a team that comes back from 3-0. That has never happened in the history of the NBA. A team comes back from 3-0 to win the series. There are things in sports that have never happened that we expect to happen. One thing that we never expected to happen was Vanderbilt beating a number 1, not just a number 1 overall seed, but beating number 1 Alabama. What do you know? this was a week where we saw a plethora of top teams go down. We saw number 4 Tennessee lose to Arkansas. We saw number 10 Michigan lose to Washington. We saw number 11 USC lose to Minnesota. And we also saw the mighty Vanderbilt take down the number 1 team in the nation, Alabama. Now, no, I do not think this is going to kick Alabama out of the college football playoffs. I do think that this is a major shot to Jalen Melrose Heisman resume. I do think this is a major shot for Kellen DeBoer because, trust and believe, I don't know if Nick Saban would have ever lost to a Vanderbilt. And I know that people are now starting to look at Kellen DeBoer, even though I don't think they should. But they're trying to look at him a little differently. But what's his name? Lane Kiffin, the coach of Ole Miss, said it best while he was watching. Cherish this because we're never going to see this again, which is why you see the fans and the team of Vanderbilt go crazy. They were talking crazy, which, rightfully, I mean, you just beat Alabama. You can say whatever you want. Who going to stop me? Not y'all. I think if Alabama played Vanderbilt 10 times out of 10, they're winning 9 of those. It was, in fact, they're probably winning all 10. It was just that 11th time. So it was a crazy week for college sports or college football. Now you have Oregon at the 3 spot. You have Texas back at the 1. Ohio State at the 2, which is setting up for a crazy college football Saturday because you have number 2 Ohio State going against number 3 Oregon. But yeah, man, this is monumental. Something I thought we would never see. We saw Vanderbilt beat Alabama before we saw a team come back from 3-0 and then NBA playoffs. It's crazy. It's crazy. Shouts out to Vanderbilt, which is traditionally like a baseball school. Shout out to y'all. And lastly, before we go, I'm going to congratulate and acknowledge what we saw against the Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty. Shouts out to the New York Liberty for beating the Vegas Aces in the semifinals and advancing to the WNBA finals. I'm recording this Tuesday night. So as I'm recording it, I think in fact, are they playing right now? Nope. They play in about an hour. The Connecticut Sun and Minnesota Lynx are playing Game 5. The hardest thing to do, I said this last episode, I believe. The hardest thing to do is do something again. Especially something as grand as win a championship. Because there's so much that have to go right. So much. Your team has to be good. Injuries have to be on your side. You have to maintain a level of greatness for such a long time, as well as going up against everyone's best. It's hard to do something again. Damn near impossible. Not impossible, but damn near impossible to do it again. What the Vegas Aces were trying to do is do it for a 3rd time. There's a reason why there's never been an NFL team to win 3 straight in the Super Bowl era. There's only been two basketball, 3 maybe. There's only been 3 teams, I think, in the history of the NBA to win 3 straight. I think the Celtics back with Bill Russell, Jordan's Bulls did it twice, and Kobe's Lakers. And there's only been one team in the WNBA to win 3 straight, and that was the Comets that won 4 straight with Cynthia Cooper and what's that lady's name, bro? I forgot her name. Cheryl Swoops. It's hard to win 3 straight. Everything has to be on your side. From injuries to coaching to players. The reason why I thought that, and a lot of people thought that, the Vegas Aces were destined to three-peat, be the first team since the Houston Comet to three-peat, is because it seemed like they had all the ingredients. You had the best player. You have the best player in basketball in A'ja Wilson. You have a team that just won, pretty much all coming back. Coaching seemed to be there, and you didn't have injuries. Well, another issue, not an issue, but another thing that you have to be cautious about is not resting on your laurels when it's easy to. You win back-to-back championships. It's easy to rest on your laurels. It's easy to see the team, the league around you get better, and you stay put because you think that this team is good enough to run it back. Obviously, seeing as though they just went back-to-back. But that's something that you have to be careful with, because if you don't, I think the Vegas Aces, if everything would have been right this year, if Chelsea Gray didn't get hurt, if Kelsey Plum didn't have a bad year, if Kia Stokes wasn't hurt, I think they had all the ingredients of winning it, of running it back and three-peating. But obviously that didn't happen. A'ja Wilson had statistically the greatest season a WNBA player has ever had. Chelsea Gray missed most of the season, so she was trying to get her rhythm back at the end of the season. Never works. Kelsey Plum had a bad season. I'll keep it respectful. She had a bad season. Wasn't good. They didn't find any production from anyone else outside of, honestly, A'ja Wilson. And Kia Stokes she got hurt. I tip my hat and shouts out to the Vegas Aces. Oh, no, shouts out to the New York Liberty. They took the loss. They got better. And in big moments, they stepped up when the Vegas Aces could not. And now you see the New York Liberty sitting, waiting for the winner of the Connecticut Sun as we shoot this, the game hasn't started yet, so I don't know the winner. But I do know that, and the Vegas Aces have proven that everything has to go right. It is extremely difficult to three-peat. And as a whole, as a team, they did not have a good season. A'ja Wilson had a great season. The Vegas Aces did not, because everything that went their way, that landed their way, the first two that landed their way, the first championship, the second championship, didn't land their way, or the chips didn't fall in their favor the third time. And when it gets to I can't say that. When it gets to you have to, all right, your best foot has to go forward. When you haven't done it all season for a lot of players, and those same players are the ones taking most of the shots and missing, might I add, the sixth woman of the year didn't do much of anything in the semifinals, except foul a lot. Chelsea Gray didn't do much except miss a lot. Kelsey Plum had one great game. That's about it. And I'm going to... There were a lot of times when you could question some of the coaching decisions. There were a lot of times. I am not taking anything away from the New York Liberty. They essentially dominated the Vegas Aces 2 of the 3 games. And shouts out to the New York Liberty for being the first team to reach the WNBA championship or WNBA finals, I'm sorry. And this is just proof of how difficult it is to three-peat, which is why I think collectively, I don't know how many teams have done it in hockey, but I know when we talk about the NFL, NBA, and MLB, I know the Yankees did it, I think. Bulls, probably the Celtics. I'm not 100% sure. Lakers. And that's it. Oh, and the Houston Comet. That's not even a team anymore. 5 teams that I'm almost sure in the history of the WNBA, NBA, NFL, and MLB. It's very difficult to three-peat. And the Vegas Aces proved why. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the links in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate all of you guys. If you like the content, not only should you subscribe, but tell a friend to subscribe. It means so much to me. Also, for all my DSP listeners, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your DSPs and wherever you hear my luxurious voice, please follow. It definitely means a lot. Also, please follow the socials. Follow Instagram. Follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily, whether that's reels, stories. We can go back and forth in the comments. Just keep it respectful. And I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're listening to me and you're passionate about whatever we're talking about. Please follow the socials. Again, that's Instagram, TikTok. I'll leave it all in the description below. I appreciate all of you guys. And until next time, much love.